are looking forward. Please, give us your input.
We find it. We were struggling to find the mute button. Finally, we did. Okay, here we go. Sorry about this delay.
No problem.
I hope you can hear us well.
Yes.
Me, Melis, BİRİK, and Bahar AKSEL is going to. We are going to present scenario building in urban design and expecting in unexpected situations, and we are going to present the paper mainly for three titles. First of all, we will talk about the past and present, how we used to observe the complexity of the city. And then we will talk about a bit about the future and the challenges of the future. The complexity, how do we observe the complexity in a new way, and the conflicts and uncertainties in between. After that, we will talk about using a tool, which we already know, but how to reutilize this tool to foresee the future and use it as a useful tool for education in urban design and planning. When we check the past to see how the complexity was defined, it's very easy to understand it from the old grabbers and the presentations of the city. The first thing we notice, all these explanations comes afterward with a big crisis. First World War and the economic crisis already has a influence for the explanation of the complexity. Basically, we do explain system as a element standing in relation, and there's a interaction with these elements, and this system becomes a whole as a working component, and we call it as a continuous complexity. Actually, we observed this situation from the beginning of 19th centuries and 20s, the definitions, and we still continue using this definition in education level, especially in urban design. We still use these separations like structural, economic, social, and political levels. When we come to the existing situation today, the complexity we used to define become a different situation. Complexity get more complex here. Roles of elements has been changed, and interaction between elements has been more complex. Increasing availability of large database and the big data revolution also forced this situation. Among this, human cognition is also has a addition to this complexity, because it's really difficult to understand and define this complexity while living in it. We have models to define these complexities. Mostly the problems which we call wicked problems, mainly based the models, but the problem is the conflict. Outcomes and incomes of the models mostly feed each other. That's why if we have a problem with the one model, whole system have to be re-evaluated. Within this system, we also have uncertainties. The new complexity forced the uncertainties. The uncertainties also deals with the climate change, and the climate change, which is mostly usually we experience our daily life, makes us think the future is in a different scenario levels. But we have to remember that all scenarios are stories and have to be presented as stories. Otherwise, it's more difficult to understand and comprehend the holistic situation. That's why there are some tools, some methods to abstract the situation to make it more understandable, especially in education level. We can use these tools, or we can remember these tools, because these tools has already been used in 1950s and evaluated in 1970s, again according to the crisis, and used for the companies actually. But we have some more ideas about using this old tool in the new problem-solving strategies, like urban scale scenarios. We have some good examples, like UK National Ecosystem Assessment used for seeing the country's vision, and also we can experience this tool in a more lower scale, design scale, like creating a future urban spaces. Starting from this point, we also tried or experienced this tool with our students and give them a problem to solve. Maybe Bahar can continue with that.
Okay. Thank you. So we have this big idea of the future. I mean, the most unexpected but expected future about the climate change. So we wanted to wrap up all this ideathon idea and the work around this, and use scenario building as the methodology for students to develop their ideas starting from a different scope. So we gave them the facts of the sea level rise according to the worst cases, around 5 to 10 meters, especially for Istanbul, for a future of 100 years. And we required the participants to define a scenario according to the scenario building matrix, and ask them to develop a holistic definition of daily life from individual to urban scale. So the starting point of this scenario building process was the user's experience about the city. And at the end, the context was, of course, architectural and urban design solutions to maintain sustainable urban environment according to the scenario. So how the people will adapt to such a future for Istanbul. So we transformed the scenario building matrix according to our theme, from adaptive to a resilient future, and from a dystopian or an utopian approach. So the students can locate their idea development processes from one of these boxes, which will give them a kind of a frame to kind of define the uncertainty in a way as a beginning point for this idea development processes. So we wanted to create a human-centered design approach through this ideathon and the systemic design. So we didn't ask, or we didn't expect students to focus on one place in the city or just one topic, and then start to create some design solutions in urban level. Instead, they started from imagining the future. How is it going to be like in 2100 in Istanbul when the sea level rises up to 5 meters? And our main aim was to support the design education with an alternative methodology and experience, because the role of the urban designer is changing a lot today, and even for this unexpected future. So, and we also wanted to encourage creativity and their creative design thinking, and boost their creative design processes. So we gave them a defined problem, and we gave them the facts with reports and information. We also added some supportive lectures, so they They didn't feel lost, kind of, in this new process that they faced. And we gave them a very limited time. So they really focused on the idea instead of just thinking about other things, and defined the context of the outcome, not the scales, not the paper sizes or the number of the sections and plans, but we just asked them to present their scenario as I mean, the way they wanted to be. So it was their powerful time to choose the best presentation view, let's say. So as we are going to show you some examples from the outcomes of the workshop. So we saw that it worked as we wanted. When they started to imagine the future of Istanbul, they start to think about the participants, the actors, who will be there, who will be still adapted to this future. So some of the scenarios told us the story through the different species as characters of the co-living habitat of Istanbul for the future. So we are going to rise sea level, so they're going to be a very vivid sea life probably. So how will humans and these sea creatures be the actors of this co-living habitat? So, or the other scenario, for example, developed from different lifestyles and opposite lifestyles in Istanbul from different locations. Mm-hmm. So they started focusing on the daily life aspects, and then they design the future as a combined system. And as a result, they come to the detailed urban design solutions and spatial fictions, let's say. So you can see some drawings over here, which the story starts with the person, with a persona, and their living habitat and their habits, changed habits. And then they started to move around the city. So then we realized how the life changed and how the city is affected. This is also one of the examples again, because they, how can I say, they constructed their idea as a fluid system as well. So a growing system, yes. So it is also growing in time according to the needs of the people. And these needs are defined from the social life aspects, how people are talking to each other, what are their needs, how they communicate, how they relate with their space. So the ideathon took only 3 days. So these drawings and the ideas you can see here are developed in only 3 days. But at the end, we asked professional designers from different places, let's say from universities and professional life, and from TV and cinema sector also. We invite our friends as a jury, these professionals, to evaluate these ideas, how they develop the scenario. Is it reliable? Is it constructed in a good way in the relation of the scenario and the urban space? They evaluated these scenarios from these 5 criteria. And these are the names of the groups on the left-hand side, you can see. So the checkbox showed us that we kind of managed to develop the scenario, which is fed by different perspectives. And the participants really enjoyed and find it fruitful to multi-layer elaboration of the fictionalized Istanbul. So that's how they developed their projects. So the consistency of the constructed idea and the originality of the idea is in a good level for a 3 days workshop. So we saw that, as a conclusion, okay, just this is the last slide. So we, for seeking a tool for urban design's future and or urban designers' new role and changing responsibilities, and to foresee the more complex future, we just ask a new phase or offer, propose, which is the new, the most, the word for that. We propose a new phase after analyzing the facts, a creative design thinking process before we go to the design concepts and problem solving, because we need to imagine this complex structure which is surrounding the designer, but with a different methodology, which is the scenario building and human-centered approach, instead of just focusing the space and the spatial problems. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, great pictures they produced in just 3 days. It's very, very impressive. We have a little bit of time for questions. So are there any questions from the audience? So probably either just speak up, we are not that many. I think it won't create chaos, or raise your hand, this tool in the bottom here, if you have questions. Otherwise, I would briefly ask you, use the time. Oh, there is somebody. Şebnem?
Yes,
Please.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering what was the reaction of the students through this experience? How did they react to all these, you know, maybe utopian a little bit, because it is like a very futuristic way of looking at it, although it is an expected situation. Thank you.
Actually, we forget to tell that the students are chosen from different universities, so they were not even knowing us, or some of them come as groups as well, but they are not, I mean, it's not a compact group that knows each other very well. So it was a whole new experience for them with the people, and so with the methodology too. And they react at the beginning, you know, this situation about the climate changes ended up all the time that, oh, we are going to all die. So it's a very pessimistic subject, and everybody got stuck at the end, because I mean, it feels like there's no solution for that. But we told them, okay, it's done, which I mean, we are going to have it, and humanity will adapt in a way. So as designers, instead of just crying, I mean, we need to try to foresee. So let's imagine, how will it be? So it worked very well. And scenario developments worked very well combined with this, this situation, because then they started to imagine, how, if I live in 2100, how will it be? How will it be like? So they had a position, at the beginning, everybody was dystopian. So it was a very pessimistic story, but ended up in an optimistic way. It kind of developed to a utopian, oh, if we have adapted, so then we are going to need this and that, and we need to think about the under the sea life and so on. So we need to think about the new energy resources. So how will it be? And it really flourished, I think, the ideas. So it was very positive for the students. Their feedback is so positive.
And also, just like as we mentioned at the beginning, this complexity issue had to be studied between different professions. And students were also sort of in a laboratory situation, like urban planning students, architectural students, even from computer programming students used to come together. And they figured out how to deal with and how to work together to find a solution against this critical, wicked situations. And also it worked well.
Thank you very much. Sounds very, very successful as an approach. Do I see another hand? No. Then just briefly adding a question. because you showed in your last slide that after this scenario development, you would, as far as I understood, would go back to your analysis, whatever data you collected, information, and how would you bring the two together? Was that part of this process, or would this be a follow-up activity they did not go on with?
It happened like that. I mean, we gave them the facts and the basic analysis about the urban, the urban situation in Istanbul and the climate change effects. But when they started to develop the scenario, they realized that they need more detailed analysis according to their scenarios. The second phase analysis done different ways and different subjects. So it was their own outcome actually. Oh, we need to make more analysis, more detailed information about this situation. For example, one of the H2O group focused on the energy, new energy resources. So they realized that, okay, we need to deal with this much more, so we need to make new analysis about this situation. And so the other ones decided to create an island about coming out of the plastics and leftovers from the city. So they started to more go deep in the waste management and how they can recycle and reuse these wastes and so on. So that second phase come from their ideas actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds very interesting as an approach, as a design approach. Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry we have to move on to the next speaker. I'm not sure who of the two is presenting. It's Özlem and Mehmet, and we hear now a presentation about urban design for resilient cities of the future, lessons to be learned from the togetherness of earthquake and the pandemic. The floor is yours.
Merhaba tekrardan. Ben şöyle paylaşayım. Bir dakika. Kusura bakmayın. Sanırım. Şu an tamam mıdır? Yani düzgün müdür? Tam ekran. Bir sıkıntı var mı?
Yes. It's still in the working mode, not the presentation mode. If you could switch the slides, would get slightly bigger.
Şimdi oldu mu?
Great.
Şu şekilde başlayayım. Merhaba, öncelikle ben Eskişehir Teknik Üniversitesi'nde mimarlık doktora programındayım. Bu da aslında tamamen doktora konumla alakalı değil şu an için ama bir merak üzerine başladığımız bir araştırmaydı hocamla beraber. Burada şöyle slaytları geçebiliyor muyum? Bir dakika. Sanırım oluyor. Yani kusura bakmayın, bir teknik problem oldu galiba. Ben öncelikle sunumumu 3 aşamada ele alacağım. Öncelikle hani biz burada dirençli kent kavramına baktık. Sonrasında da aslında bu pandemi döneminde yapılan yayınlardan ve pandeminin aslında kentsel tasarıma neler getireceğinden ile ilgili çalışmaları incelerken 30 Ekim tarihinde bir deprem oldu ve depremle pandeminin aslında bir arada olmasının öğrenilecek çok şeyler barındırdığını düşündük. Çünkü iki tane büyük afetin aynı anda oluyor ve bunda aslında kent ve insanlar nasıl etkileniyor diye araştırmaya başladık. Sonrasında şöyle tekrar geçersem, bu kavram üzerine aslında çok fazla durmayacağım sunumumda. Çünkü hani süremiz sınırlı olduğu için hani dirençlik kavramından çok bahsetmeyeceğim ama burada özellikle bizi, yani beni etkileyen şey bu kaynaklarda aslında bir sürü işte göçmen problemi, ekonomik krizler, doğal afetler gibi birçok şeyin arasında kentler bu afetlerin hepsinden aslında test ediliyor ve bu afetlere ne kadar aslında yaşadıkça ne kadar dirençli olduğunun da önemli olduğunu gördük. Burada aslında ikisinin bir aradalığında bir polikriz durumunda neler ortaya çıkıyor diye bir araştırmaya başladık. Öncelikle biraz önce söylediğim gibi 6.9 büyüklüğünde bir deprem meydana geldi İzmir bölgesinde, Ege Denizi depremi diye geçiyor kaynaklarda ve aslında bu bölge sismik olarak dünyanın en aktif bölgelerinden biri günümüzde de ve aslında bu bölgenin temel problemlerinden biri deprem. Sonrasında biz aslında bu çalışmayı yaparken nitel bir araştırma yöntemi benimsedik ve bu çalışmamızı da insanlarla görüşme şeklinde fenomenolojik araştırma olarak kurguladık. Ama bu kaynaklarla beslemek istedik. Burada da aslında haberler, işte haritalar, işte çıkan sosyal medya yorumları, yani bulabildiğimiz tüm kaynakları bu görüşmelerimizi destekleyecek şekilde analiz etmeye çalıştık. Sonrasında da aslında bu analizler ve araştırma süreci sonucunda da bazı temalar ortaya çıktı. Bu yaptığımız görüşmeler sonrasında da. Bu aslında öncelikle insanlar ihtiyaçlardan ve eksikliklerden çok fazla bahsetti. Haberlerde de aslında vurgulanan şeylerden biri. Diğer bir durum pandemiyle olan ilişkisiydi. Yani pandemi hakkında, ikisinin beraber olması hakkında insanların dediklerine odaklanmaya çalıştık. Sonrasında bu görüşmelerden ve yapılan araştırmalardan ortaya bazı önemli karakterler, aslında önemsenmesi gereken karakterler ortaya çıktı, alanlar ortaya çıktı ve bizim aslında çok da beklemediğimiz, yani aslında gördüğümüz ama çalışmadan beklemediğimiz sosyal medya ve kentsel yeşil alanlar üzerine insanların bazı vurguları ortaya çıktı. Şöyle devam edersem aslında destekleyici materyallerle alakalı internet haberlerinden bazı keywordlerle internet haberlerini aradık. Sonrasında da bu haberlerin ne şekilde bir yıllık süreçte, aslında bir yıllık süreci almıştık. Bir yıllık süreçte nasıl değiştiğini, yoğunluğunun nasıl arttığını, azaldığına baktık. Bu şekilde de aslında bu haberlerden de yine biraz önce açıklamıştım ama elimizde çıkan kaynakları da aslında haritalar, yani görsel, bölgeye dair hava görüntüleri olarak, işte fotoğraflar ve videolar olarak grupladık. Bunları da yine bu tema ve kodlamaların içine dahil ettik. Görüşmelerde de aslında insanlara kesin sorulardan ziyade daha çok temayla alakalı, yani depremin hemen sonrasında neler yaşadıklarını ya da ikisinin, deprem ve pandeminin etkisinin ne olduğunu, depremin hemen sonrasında ihtiyaçlarının ne olduğunu ve kentsel alanın kullanımlarının nasıl değiştiğini ya da bu konuda bir şey söylemek isteyip istemediklerini sorduk. Yani çok yönlendirici değil, daha çok böyle onlar ne anlatırsa onların içinden analiz etmeye çalıştık, nelerden bahsediyorlarsa diye. Ve bu aslında sorduğumuz sorularla, yani bu belirlediğimiz temalarla da elde ettiğimiz bilgileri de tekrar grupladık. Bu temaları bahsedersem aslında başta söylediğim gibi ihtiyaçlarla alakalı bir başlık ortaya çıktı. Burada aslında barınma en önemli ihtiyaç, yiyecek, ısınma ki Ekim ayının sonunda meydana geldiği için deprem, hani Kasım ayı süresince aslında havaların da soğuk olduğu, dışarıda yaşamak için soğuk olduğunu belirtti insanlar. Sonra elektrik, internet ve psikolojik desteğin de işte çok önemli olduğunu söylediler. pandemi üzerine aslında neler ortaya çıktı derseniz, hijyenle alakalı insanların çok önemli kaygıları olduğu. Çünkü hayatlarını hemen kurtardıktan sonra hijyenle alakalı bir durum var. Sosyal mesafeyle alakalı ve online eğitimle alakalı. Burada öğrencilerin de mağdur olduğu bir süreç var ve online eğitimin devam etmesiyle alakalı durumların olduğunu gördük. Mekanlarla alakalı, aslında kentsel mekanlarla alakalı öne çıkan şeyler parklar oldu. Otopark alanları oldu. İşte bahçeler, toplanma alanları insanların belirttiği spor salonları ve rekreasyon alanları gibi yeşil, temelde yeşil alanlar ama büyük kentsel alanlardan bahsettiler. Key figür olarak da aslında çocuklar, yaşlılar ve akrabaları, insanların ilk anda aradıkları, tanıdıkları insanlar var. Sonrasında da bir diğer öne çıkan şey evcil hayvanlar oldu. İnsanların bunlarla ilgili de çok önemli kaygıları var. Diğer kodlar olarak grupladığımız kısımda insanların bahsettiği duygu durumları ve sosyal medya üzerine çok fazla bahsettiler. Sosyal medyadan çok fazla destek gördüklerinden ve aslında depreme hazır olunmadığından ve genel bir organizasyon eksikliğinden bahsettiler. Tekrar bunların üzerinden geçersem, aslında hepsini biraz anlatmış gibi oldum ama bu süreçte yani depremin hemen sonrasında çadır alanları ve barınma çok önemli ve bunun içinde temel aslında görülen yerlerden biri, yani çalışmada da öne çıktığı üzere yeşil alanlar, yani kentsel boşluklar ve işte çadır alanlarının eksikleriyle alakalı çok fazla insanlar bahsetti. Bu çadırların ısıtmalarının, işte elektriğin, internetin, çünkü çok fazla yoğun bir şekilde internet kullandıklarını ve aslında internet erişiminin kentsel alanda çok önemli olduğunu, bu gibi durumlarda önemli olduğunu ve temiz suya ulaşımının aslında önemli olduğunu belirttiler. Ve birçok görüştüğümüz insan da buradaki deprem sonrası bunu yaşamış insanlara psikolojik desteğin verilmesi gerektiğini ve bunun aslında önemli bir ihtiyaç olduğunu, hani belki üzerinde çok durulmayan ama çok önemli bir ihtiyaç olduğunu söylediler. Bu arada hani biz bu çalışmada 10 kişiyle görüştük, uzun görüşmeler yaptık. Bu görüştüğümüz kişilerin deprem çadırlarında kalanlar vardı, online eğitimle öğrenci olanlar vardı, İzmir'de yaşayanlar ve yardım ekibinde olanlar vardı. Aynı zamanda hani bu alanların organizasyonunda, yardım dağıtımında çalışan görevlilerden vardı. Mümkün olduğunca çeşitlilik sağlamaya çalıştık. O alana geri dönersem. Mekanlarla alakalı aslında bizim çalışmada önemsediğimiz bir durumdu. Mekanlarla alakalı ne bulabileceğiz diye. Burada insanların aslında yeşil alanlara, hani deprem olduğu zaman açık alana çıkmak istedikleri, binalardan uzaklaşmak istediklerini biliyoruz ama yeşil alanla alakalı da aslında bizim burada elde ettiğimiz büyük yeşil alanları, binalardan daha uzak yeşil alanları, mahalle arasındaki parklardan ziyade daha büyük yeşil alanlara ihtiyaç olduğundan ve o alanlarda daha güvende hissettiklerinden bahsettiler. Yani hatta evlerinin, yani evinin yaşadığı alanın yanında büyük bir yeşil alan olmadığı için arabayla otoyol kıyısına gidip otoyol kıyısındaki yeşil alanda oturup beklediğinden bahseden insanlar oldu. Ve aslında kent içindeki ufak parkların da, yani binaların arasında kalan parkların da yani tasarımı gereği, binaların arasında olması gereğinden dolayı çok güvenli bulunmadığından bahsettiler, güvenli bulunmadığını gördük. Ve aslında burada en büyük hani o önemli öne çıkan alanlardan biri Aşk Veysel rekreasyon alanıydı. Burası büyük bir alan ve yaklaşık 800 çadır, belki daha fazlası bu alanda kurulmuş depremin hemen sonrasında. Buradaki durumdan, buradaki yaşamdan bahsedenler oldu. Yine bu alanın önünde ki bir buz pisti var sanırım. Onun önünde kurulmuş bir alan, çadır alanlarıydı bunlar. Yine bu stadyum alanı, hani çadır kurulabilecek ya barınma için insanlara önerilen çadırların kurulduğu, çadır kentlerin kurulduğu bir alan. Aslında çalışma süresince bu çadır kentlerin nerelere kurulduğunu, nasıl yerlerde olduğunu da araştırmaya, bağlantı kurmaya çalıştık. Sonrasında pandemiyle ilişkisine değinmek istiyorum. Burada hani hijyen öne çıkan konulardan biriydi. Ve aslında insanların sosyal mesafe, hani pandemiyle beraber sosyal mesafeden çok fazla önemsediğimiz bir konuydu ama sosyal mesafenin böyle bu gibi deprem gibi bir durumda çok da gözetilemediğini, aslında orada karşıdaki insanı sağlıklı gördüğün zaman mutlaka sarılmak istediğinden bahsettiler ve bu hani beni de açıkçası çok etkiledi. Yani aslında sosyal mesafeye o alan içerisinde pandeminin etkisi olsa da ilk aşamada çok da dikkat edilmediğini, maskelerin takılmadığını ya da görevlilerin de aslında bu konuda hijyen geri plana atılan bir şey olduğundan, hijyen ve sosyal mesafenin geri plana atılan bir şey olduğundan bahsettiler. Online eğitimden de bahsedersem kısaca, alanda özellikle internet bağlantısı ve bilgisayar olan tırların kurulduğunu, aslında öğrencilerin o alanda o şekilde eğitimine devam ettiği, geçici eğitim alanlarının kurulduğundan bahsettiler. Sonra da burada öne çıkan figürlerden bahsedersem, insanlar çocukların eğitimi ve çocukların orada vakit geçirmesi için yapılan şeylerden bahsettiler. İşte orada çeşitli animasyonlar, insanların oraya gelip çocuklarla beraber vakit geçirmek istemesi, üniversite öğrencileri özellikle çeşitli oyunlar oynamışlar, orada vakit geçirmişler. Sonrasında yaşlı insanların özellikle çadır kentte ihtiyaçlarının, bazı ulaşım, iletişim ihtiyaçlarının, çünkü çocuklarını aramak istiyorlar ya da bir yere ulaşmak istiyorlar ama yaşlıların da çok önemli ve yardıma ihtiyaç, aslında kırılgan bir durum olduğundan bahsettiler. Sonrasında da özellikle görüştüğümüz insanların belirttiği evcil hayvanlarıyla alakalı çok büyük telaşları olduğunu ve deprem sonrasında da bulunan işte evcil hayvanların nasıl sahiplendirildiğinden ya da nerelere götürüldüğünden, işte barınakların aslında o dönemde yetersiz olduğundan falan bahsetmişlerdi. Sonra burada aslında biz diğer kod olarak çıkardığımız ve öne çıkan şeylerden biri sosyal medyaydı. Biz hani bu kadar öne çıkacağını açıkçası düşünmüyorduk. Ama insanlar o deprem anındaki, deprem durumundaki o organizasyon eksikliğinin, o paniğin ya da yaşadıkları birçok şeyi sosyal medya aracılığıyla ihtiyaçlarını giderebildikleri, birbirlerine haberleşebildiklerini ve bu süreçte aslında birçok problemi çözen bir araç olduğundan bahsettiler. Ve bununla alakalı işte sosyal medyada, hatta takipçisi çok fazla olan ve sosyal medyada daha gücü olan diyebileceğimiz insanlardan yardım toplamak için yardım toplamak amacıyla iletişime geçtiklerini, orada yapılan paylaşımlarla bir sürü şeyin geldiğini alana bahsettiler. Diğer bir durum da organizasyonun ve bu sürecin çok fazla iyi yönetilemediğinden bahsettiler. Çünkü bu depremle alakalı aslında birçok kaynakta özellikle 72 saatin, depremin hemen sonrasındaki 72 saatin çok önemli olduğunu bahsediyorlar. O zaman şöyle kısaca özetlersem, biz aslında bu çalışma sonucunda yeşil alanların, büyük yeşil alanların çok önemli olduğunu ve sosyal medyanın da dirençli kentler için çok önemli olduğu sonucuna vardık. Teşekkür ederim. Şöyle.
Thank you very much, Özlem. I'm sorry I had to rush or hurry you a little bit. We have probably
Ben
time
biraz
for one
uzattım.
question. Is
Kusura
there
bak-
one question from the audience? I'm just looking at raised hands. So, not yet. Probably brief, and maybe you can briefly answer that. Although I know it's probably a very complex thing to consider. What you are describing, is this the end of the compact city?
Yani olabilir, bilmiyorum şu an aslında gerçekten. Yani evet, belki de öyle düşünmek lazım.
Okay, so you see it critical, yeah, to continue with this general concept if you would want to fulfill what you have described in your analysis. Yeah, thank you very much, Özlem, for your presentation. And we continue with our third contribution, which is Şebnem and Özge. I hope I pronounce it right. I'm very sorry if not, if there's mispronunciation. The two are telling us about understanding the impact of urban design on achieving the UN SDGs. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you hear me and see my screen?
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. We are from Eastern Mediterranean University, Cyprus, from the Department of Architecture. My name is Şebnem HOŞKARA, and I will be presenting this paper or research, let's say, with our research assistant, Özge, Selen, Koç. This is going to be the kind of structure of our introduction, deal with the 32 ones. It's mainly based on TKR evaluations. Well, this research is actually an ongoing research with like 2 years time. Even we started before pandemic with the argument that there is a SDGs as a package. So the aim of this particular research is to explore the role of urban design on achieving the UN SDGs and their targets, and to explore how urban design can contribute to development, economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. With this research, based on a through literature survey, we try to answer 2 research questions. How can urban design contribute to achieving UN SDGs? And how should theories and approaches of urban design SDGs? We believe that all these design today, but all the other professions have to reshape themselves through the process of achieving United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we have carried out this methodology. We have done a literature review, and we have done this historical background. We try to understand Sustainable Development Goals as a whole, and then we try to do a cross-concept analysis by merging all Sustainable Development Goals with the urban design dimensions and elements. We try to bring some indicators of urban design so that we try to understand binary design dimensions are relating to each other. I will be doing SDGs. Of course, due to lack of time, we will not be able to go into details of all these theories, assuming that you already know. But the concept of sustainability, as you will already know, and it has gone through a long way until we reach the 2030 agenda with the meeting. So in starting from 1st of June in 2000, new urban agenda of the SDGs, a set of 17 goals for the world's future through 2030, backed up by a set of 100 or 2-year period at the United Nations, in addition to the previous meetings of the global leaders. And then the whole thing was agreed on 2015, nearly by all the world's nations. And came into force, as I said, the 1st of June. It was new. It is not new maybe anymore, because we are already, like, we have passed the 2/3 of process or period. First of all, these goals apply to every nation, and to every sector, and this was our starting point. The goals apply to every sector: cities, businesses, schools, organizations. They are all challenged to act.
Sorry.
That means they are universal.
I have to.
Yes.
I have to interfere. Your internet connection is not quite stable, so if you can turn your camera off, it would be better, maybe.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Secondly, it is recognized that the goals are all interconnected in a system. We cannot aim to achieve just one goal. We must achieve them all. So there's integration. This is why when we were studying from urban design perspective or architecture related to sustainable cities and communities, but we are concentrating on the whole package of goals. And finally, the transformation is the other characteristic: economy, environment. You may see these in theoretical background. They are sometimes called 5 pillars, 5 spheres, or 5 dimensions of SDGs. Or this is the other way of looking at SDG. So all these concepts lying behind sustainable development goals, we believe that they are related to urban design as a process, urban design as a profession, urban design as a design activity. So moving from this, when we come to urban design dimensions, of course, there are various definitions of urban design, various ways of looking at urban design. We have taken Matthew Carmona's way of looking at urban design. He has the picture or this figure on the left is dating to 2003, whereas we have adopted this and basing on his new approach to place shaping process. We look at urban design, or we take urban design as a process of making, shaping, or reshaping better places for people, basically. And we moved from here to understand the indicators of urban design dimensions. As I said, I will not go through these in detail. You can read them in the full paper later on. Morphological dimension, the perceptual dimension with its own elements. The social dimension, concentrating on public realm, neighborhood, people, space, and accessibility. Visual dimension, functional dimension, and finally, the temporal dimension, together with the design governance and the place production dimension of urban design. So what we did, as I said at the beginning, dimensions together with their elements is to understand if and how these dimensions and indicators meet or relate to sustainable and on the sustainable development goals has been rated on a scale of 1 to 8, 1 representing the lowest, 8 representing the highest impact. Over to Özge, who will be explaining the evaluation and findings of our
Yes, thank you, Şebnem Hocam. In this section, I will continue with the evaluation of the data. As we mentioned before, the cross-concept analysis is used to determine the impact of the urban design dimension on the SDGs. And then these data from the metric is analyzed by the ranking. While examining the urban design contribution to achieving SDG, we did not use the limited intersection between the SDGs and urban design dimension, but we categorized their relationship under the social, economic, and environmental dimension with the cooperation of the institute operation and the partnership, and which are the main elements of the sustainability in order to understand whether the interaction type is direct or the indirect. Therefore, the zone market, the check bar with the red color in the table represent the social dimension, while blue for the economic and the green for the environment. And then the gray part, which will show the definition, is the institution, operation, and the partnership. Yes. In the first analysis, the first section, sorry. Yes, the first analysis, we focus on the relationship between the morphological dimension and SDGs. We all know the urban design morphological dimension deal with the configuration of urban forms and the space and the spatial pattern of the infrastructure that support it. Therefore, when the main concern of the dimension are taken into consideration, it is observed that the main focus tend to be social and economic based interaction. Also, we observe that there's an indirect intersection with an environmental concern. As a result of analysis, 60% integration rate emerged. And thus we can say that there is a strong relationship between the SDG 3, which is good health and well-being, and SDG 4, quality education, and SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure is the more related with this morphological concerns. Yes, and the second analysis, we focus on the yes, can we change Şebnem Hocam? Slide. Yes, in the second analysis, we focus on the perceptual dimension. Yes, based on the two main indicators, and one of them is the individual interpretation, the other one is the community and the cultural effect. And the perceptions involves the gathering, organizing, and making the sense of information about this environment. As we see in the matrix, there is a good and strong relationship between the SDG 3, good health and well-being, SDG 4, quality education, 5, gender equality, 10, reduce inequality, 16, peace, justice, strong institution, and the partnership and the goals. Yes, and at the end, and we are seeing that 45% interaction rate between the SDGs and the urban design's perceptual dimension. In the third analysis, we focus on the social dimension and SDGs interaction, and social we can define as a relationship between the space and the societies. In this analysis, strong social and economic aspects were determined in the relationship of the social dimension with the SDGs. That's why in the matrix, we perceive that there is a strong relationship between the SDG 1, no poverty, and SDG 2, zero hungry, and SDG 3, good health and well-being, and SDG 4, quality education, SDG 5, gender equality, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 10, reduce inequality, SDG 13, climate action. As we see, they're mainly focused on the social aspect, but as an indirect effect, we are seeing that how they affect our climatic actions. Yes, and at the end, we are saying that their interaction is 60% rate. And the next one, we are analyzing, yeah, after the social dimension, we will continue with visual dimension. Şebnem hocam, can we change the slide? Yeah, thank you so much. And then we know this the visual dimension. Yeah, actually, end of this analysis, we discovered that this visual dimension was the less associated one with the SDGs than the other dimension. And visual dimension is mostly focused on the city's form and appearance that must satisfy broader public and who regularly experience it. And this limited interaction was observed to be partially equally divided into the social, economic, and environmental concerns. And we may conclude that it was partially related to the SDGs 3, which is good health and well-being, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and SDG 12, and responsible consumption and the production, SDG 13, climate action. As a result, and we can see that the 35% interaction rate emerged. And in the next one, we continued with the analyzing the functional dimension and then SDGs interaction. As we know, the functional dimension to reflect how the place works, and I think that's why in this analysis we are seeing the strong economic, environmental, social, and institutional concepts and direct relationship with the many SDGs has been identified, such as SDG 3, good health, well-being, 4, quality education, 5, gender equality, 6, clean water and sanitation, 10, reduce inequality, 13, climate action, 16, peace, justice, strong institution, and 17, partnership for the goals. Yes, and at the end, 60% interaction rate emerged. And generally, in the main, the main dimension, we are seeing more than the 60% interaction level. That's the positive concern and the reason why we are doing this, thinking they are integrated. In this in the next one, we are the focus on the temporal dimension and then the SDGs interaction. We know, and from the sustainability, we are trying to provide our needs without affecting. Yeah, sorry. And to sum up easily, yeah, we are most depending on the temporal ones, which is a concern everything today, past, today, and the futures. That's why it's important. And I'm just quickly passing the next one. Is the government dimension, and we have 87%. And the next one, we have the production dimension. We have 75% interaction with the all. And this the timeline we are seeing how they integrated with the different dimension and the different SDGs and their interpretation, the border extends on it. Yes. And as a result of this analysis, the relationship between the SDGs and the dimension is summarized from that table. And each SDG has its own specific engagement, the rate between all the SDGs and then urban design dimension. And yes, now let's back to our main question and then sum up everything. Sorry, I will be quick. And how can urban design contribute to achieving SDGs? And we have some potential benefit to better public health, great social equity, enhance land values, more vibrant local economy, reduce footprints, and more sustainable use of the materials. And from the application, the practice, we can see this line and how they intersect each other and how we support our action with an SDGs. And yes, in general. And the last one, how should Terry's approach of urban design to reshape throughout the process of achieving SDGs? A shared framework to support more systematic knowledge and development and use, identification limits that create a gap between the started urban goals and actual practice, identification of strategic focus point to address this gap, and finally, we can say developing integrated strategy at broader urban scale. It seems as a most pressing need within any urban design, the practice or the application. The knowledge framework should adapt a system perspective, which should include and integrate the SDGs and their targets and leaving no one behind. Thank you. I'm sorry for taking too much time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, a few questions are possible. Please raise your hands if you have any question. I don't see a raised hand for the moment, so probably I use the time. I'm wondering, when you showed these manifold aspects which can be addressed through urban design and overlapping topics, have you identified any conflicts between the goals when we approach urban design solution? So I think some of the goals, all of them are very important, we recognize, but some of them might be conflicting. And we might have to, we are confronted in urban design with the conflict. So we either go for the one or we go for the other goal, or how we balance them. Did you identify such potential conflicts in your analysis, or was this a topic?
Şebnem hocam, you want to answer or should I? Yes. She'll let me wait. I think, yeah, I can answer, I think, if you want to jump. And actually, the point that we saw this conflict between this SDGs, that's why we divided them to according to some dimension of the urban design, because we believe that the ending poverty and also the creating the economic advantage is not that much the integrated with each other right now. But we know nowadays we are more than the changing, we are in the crisis mode. That's why we have to consider all the aspects, and we have to at least we have to create the maximum benefit from the all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I think you mentioned you would one aspect would be to identify priorities, right?
Yes, exactly.
Which have to be set. Yeah, and
yeah,
I think that's the challenge in a way, to really find this balance even within original urban design topics, as we had in the presentation before, either going for a compact structure where you would save resources, which is one SDG goal, and the other one is having well-being for everybody, which asks for a lot of green space, for example, which creates kind of a dilemma, I think, and these are difficult things to answer. Yeah, where to set the priorities. Well, we are looking forward to your paper then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We continue. I don't see any raised hands so far. I hope I didn't oversee anybody.
There is one actually.
There is one. I'm sorry. Then I missed it. Yes.
There is one message question.
Oh, sorry. Yes, please. İdil.
Merhaba herkese. Teşekkür ederim hem önceki sunumlar için hem de aslında bu sunum için. Ben çok sizin aslında çalışmanızın ana omurgasını bu oluşturmuyor ama fikrinizi merak ettiğim için sormak istedim. Teoriden yola çıkıyorsunuz aslında. Teoride bu ilişkileri, bunun potansiyellerini görmek bence çok kıymetli. Sanırım Okay, if you switch the English channel from interpretation menu below, you can hear us in English, I guess. Pardon. Teoride dediğim gibi bu ilişkileri ve bu potansiyelleri görmek gerçekten çok kıymetli. Ama ana akım kentsel tasarım pratiğinde, uygulamasında aslında bu hedefleri ne kadar karşılamaya çalışıyoruz? Hani bu hedefler ne kadar kentsel tasarımın gündeminde yer alıyor? Aslında bunu nasıl gözlemliyorsunuz? Onu merak ettim. Teoriden öte pratikte bu nasıl ilişkileniyor? Bir fikriniz var mı? Hani ya da yorumlarınızı alabilirsem çok sevinirim. Teşekkürler.
Thank you, Edith.
My internet is
Şebnem
not
hocam, do you
very
want to
good,
answer or?
but if I may answer very quickly,
Yeah.
thank you for the question. Of course, we haven't gone through different studying the topic. This is a couple of real urban design projects, and then analyze them and see how urban design dimensions are relating to very urban design, dimensions of urban design. There are tools, and we go through the goals are a guidance for us. So with this guidance and with these tools, I think we can do better than what's professional life is different than theory. So this is the next step that we have to search for. Basically, thank you for your question.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much again for your presentation. We switch to our final presentation in this session, which is from Melis, and she will tell us about transform materials to transform cities. Melis, the floor is yours.
Do you see full screen?
No. Yes.
Okay. Okay, is it okay? Okay, hello everyone. My name is Melis YILMAZ. There is a translation English, and I'm hearing that. Okay, can I continue? Okay, hello everyone. My name is Melis YILMAZ. I'm a PhD student in city and regional planning, and actually I'm an architect, and later on I studied urban design, and now PhD student in city and regional planning. And today I'm going to talk about transform materials, transform cities. The aim of the study, the discussion, is to examine the urban transformation process in Turkey in line with the principle of green urbanism, and to discuss the regulations regarding construction and demolition waste management. In this study, first of all, the framework of the environmental problem will be drawn, and the role of construction industry in this problem will be expressed. Secondly, green urbanism will be mentioned, and LCA, a life cycle assessment, and related concepts will be explained. Later that, the impact of single-use approach of construction materials, and I'm going to give some recommendation on reuse and recycling and reducing construction materials. And then material, concrete, and urban renewal process of Istanbul, Turkey will be focused, and a situation assessment will be made in comparison with the legislation of selected examples. Let's start. When we look at the general atmosphere of our world, it's indicated by the European Commission that the greenhouse effect created by some gases trapping the sun's heat in the atmosphere is the main cause of global warming. There are some gases listed below: the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, fluorinated gases. They impact the global warming. But among these gases, carbon dioxide emitted through human activities is the largest contributor to global warming. By 2020, carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere is 48 higher than it was when industrialization began. And it's very important that we need to keep warming well below 2 centigrade, and it has been recognized by the international communities. And another important environmental problem is pollution of air, pollution of water and soil. And construction has a big pie of that image. Construction waste has caused serious environmental problems in many large cities. According to Eurostat's information, the rate of construction waste to total waste, which is 33 in 2012 and 34.7 in 2014, it's now 2018, it's reached 35%. There is an increase observed over the years. The carbon dioxide emission caused by the construction materials and the large amount of waste produced by the construction industry should be taken into consideration. Due to the gradually increasing environmental problems, it has become more important to make the necessary arrangements for all industries which are part of the problem and follow the principle of green urbanism, which includes the concepts of zero waste, like less carbon dioxide emission and less embodied energy. Green urbanism was defined by Lehman as a conceptual model for zero emission and zero waste urban design, which arose in the 1990s, even though it wasn't referred as green urbanism in the early significant writings on the subject created by Ebenezer Howard, Rainer Banham, Lewis Mumford, and Jane Jacobs. In general, the development of social and environmental sustainable cities is promoted for both new urban developments and existing city districts. The aim is like moving from an unsustainable linear metabolism towards a more sustainable circular metabolism, and it requires reuse of materials and products. And there are two main concepts firmly centered around a change in paradigm from linear metabolism to circular metabolism. The two concepts is circular economy and urban metabolism. It's a very good diagram created by the Lucertini and Musco. It's like it's showing that every step of the construction of a material is like starting from the exploitation, mining, processing, and then at the end of the cycle, it's being recycled, and again, it's continue its cycle, life cycle. The key features include reduce inputs, reduce waste generation, and a drive to minimize energy, water, and material use at every stage of a city's or neighborhood's life cycle. High emission and high pollution environmental conditions can be prevented by urban green developments centered on energy efficiency generated by creating urban metabolism systems. And I'm going to talk about a little short about what is embodied energy and embodied carbon and how we calculate the life cycle assessments in a very basic way. Actually, it's very detailed work, but you can read on the paper. The embodied energy is the energy used during all stages of a material or product's life, and it refers to total energy consumed in raw material execution, manufacture, transport, use, and disposal of a material and product. Concordantly, embodied carbon refers to the carbon dioxide released during a material or product's life cycle. LCA, the life cycle assessment, studies the environmental aspect and potential effect throughout a product's life. It includes both embodied energy and embodied carbon lay inside a material and how its effect throughout its life cycle. If the life cycle assessment of construction materials is examined to have a holistic perspective, it can be said that all of the materials have an embodied energy and embodied carbon lay inside them. And by reusing the materials instead of creating waste, the environmental impact can be reduced at least. There are humanitarian efforts to develop new ways of building that save resources, limit waste, and promote green technology. In addition, high energy utilization and pollution generation from construction activities should be controlled. To control the impact of the construction industry on the environment, necessary regulation, it's very important for all of the world, should be enacted, and construction waste management shouldn't be left to the initiatives or institution or and any company. And I'm gonna give a couple examples about the reducing, reusing, and recycling materials. The first example is from the Miller Company Landscape Architects. They mined a steel canopy structure from a nearby defunct train station and repurposed it for the housing projects, like a shading in Oakland, California. And this one is like some materials. This is a recycled materials cottage by Juan Luis Martinez. It's like all of the materials is like repurposed materials from another site. It's like windows from another building and the steels and from another building. And then BCHO architects use a different methods to create main facade of a cement factory information center to educate visitors about the potential for recycling concrete, which is the primary building material in Korea. Firstly, the main facade of the building, which was made of fabric formed concrete, was erected, and the concrete left over from it was recycled in the gabion cages by broken into little pieces. It's very important that this project educate people and create a new way to reusing the materials. And another examples, a step further from the reduce, reuse, and recycle, a step forward is not settling with what you have and improve the quality of the material, it's upcycle. Some projects show that even the materials which are used in daily life frequently can work as a construction material. Landeger Architecture, you can check it out, it's a very influential firm. They're always reducing the carbon dioxide emission. They created the upcycle house, and this house, during the building stage, it creates 85% less carbon dioxide emissions than a regular house. I think it's a very good rate, and they are always trying to improve that rate, related with the reducing carbon dioxide emission. And this is a table about the embodied energy, embodied carbon lay inside some of the materials mostly used in the construction industry. Is like concrete, pavement, precast concrete. Like I said, every material has embodied energy, embodied carbon. Today, steel reinforced concrete and stainless steels are commonly used materials in construction industry. Twice as much concrete is used in construction around the world than the total of all other building materials, according to the data from. But however, on the other hand, and according to the data from Institute of Stainless Steel Forum, 42% of the stainless steel is recycled already, and there aren't any specific information about how much of concrete is recycled. That's why I'm focusing on the material concrete, because we are always demolish and build again, demolish and build again. It's like an endless cycle, and we can do something about that with the necessary regulations. On the contrary to common belief, there aren't complicated procedures to recycle concrete, which is one of the most used materials construction industry. Concrete can be recycled as aggregate for new concrete production, while concrete construction waste can be recycled. It can be used as it or after basic crushing procedure, like I showed you earlier in the Korea examples. They just crush the concrete and use it in the gabion walls. We can just use it that. And reclaimed concrete can be used mostly in walkways, which provides a walkable surface and at the same time provides gaps for rainwater to reach the soil. And there are some ways to use the repurposed concrete, like concrete roads, bitumen roads, ground improvements, earthworks, shallow foundations, deep foundation, utilities. There are endless possibilities. Recycling concrete reduces the natural resource exploitation and associated transportation costs and reduces waste landfill. However, it has little impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as most emissions occur when cement is made, and cement alone can be recycled. But we can reduce the embodied energy. The examples selected within the scope of the study are the countries with strong legislation and enforcement about C and DV. Even though many countries have recycling schemes, high levels of recovery are achieving countries such as the Netherlands, England, and Japan. According to UEPG, the United Kingdom and the Netherlands are the two regions with the highest ratio of recycled aggregate to total aggregate use. England has a 93% recovery rate of non-hazardous construction and demolition waste. Similarly, Japan has almost complete recovery of concrete waste and 99% of concrete is recycled. Turkey ranks 6th in aggregate production for concrete, and concerning the recent urban transformation process and construction waste derived from all the demolitions, these legal regulations should gain more importance. We can see the Japan statistics. Their total construction waste, they recycling 96% the total construction waste. Like I said earlier, 99% of the concrete. And the construction material, there is some legislation in Japan. The construction material recycling law was enacted in May 2000, aiming at recycling reuse of prospected construction materials in view of ensuring efficient use of resources. The law was comprehensive, and there are a lot of information about the, I'm not going into the detail, but it's a strong legislation. And as a result of the law, the rate of recycling of concrete, which was 65 in 1995, reached 8% in 2000 and 99% in 2012. Countries such as Netherlands and Japan achieve near complete recovery of waste concrete. Netherlands is an example of where landfill of concrete waste is banned. And we can see that the recycled aggregate of total aggregate use, England and United Kingdom and Netherlands is the highest ratio. And there are a lot of regulation in England again, and I'm not gonna go into the detail, but they increase the cost of the primary aggregates to direct people to recycle aggregates. There is some economic legislation too. And they are taking landfill taxes for the construction waste. And we can see the increasing amount of recovery rates, 91% in the 2014. And then when we come to the Turkey situation, in case of Turkey, in 2004 and after the issue of urban transformation renewal began to take place intensively in the regulations, there are different urban transformation application and regulations in Turkey concerning the urban transformation and development areas, the transformation of disaster risk areas, and the renewal and conservation of foreign historical and cultural immovable assets. However, within the scope of the study, the whole system and the demolition construction cycle, in particular concrete recycling, will be examined related with the CNDV management regulation from a holistic view. After the law about the transformation of disaster risk areas entry into force by being published in the Official Gazette in 2013, 20-year process of transformation began in Turkey. According to the risk area application inventory prepared by Ministry of Environment and Urban Planning, total area of 209 risk areas designated was approximately 12,000 hectare, and the number of buildings was 300. In the framework of urban renewal, there are a lot of buildings demolished and built again. And huge questions comes to the minds: what about waste of this demolition? According to the article published in Fortune magazine, which is an American multinational business magazine in 2014, Turkey, there is a lack of a separate legal regime for the destruction of the structures. When it's investigated, it occurs that C&D wastes, construction and demolition wastes, were collected by the Gstach landfill sites. It's stated by the authority of Gstach that there was an active recycling facility between the years 2007 and 2013. However, the facility isn't used actively today. It's just being used to recycle some portion of concrete on the construction of landfill sites roads. There isn't a big recycling process there. It's said that the minister get authorities from both Gstach and Turkey Concrete Union opinions for drafting the new regulation. When I talked to them, there isn't any regulation, but 2021, last year, they created a regulation about the demolition activity and waste management and selective demolition. and with the regulation made by the Ministry of Environment and Urbanization, for the demolition works of the building, the contractors were obliged to prepare a demolition plan for the demolition of the buildings and to obtain a demolition license. They have to create a demolition plan now. The waste types specified in the waste management plan annexed to the demolition plan and the waste code and waste amount information are recorded in the demolition license by the relevant administration. Attachments to the demolition plan should be waste management plan, measures to be taken to control dust emission, and acoustic reports on demolition activities. As can be seen from the examples, it's possible to introduce many regulations regarding the selective demolition process and the recycling of construction waste. Especially in Turkey, there weren't compulsory regulation for C&D waste management in comparison to other countries, and concerning recent urban renewal projects and construction waste drive from all of the demolitions, this legislation should gain more importance. On the other hand, in recent years, specifically to last year, it has been seen that there is a process with the necessity of preparing a waste plan in order to obtain a demolition license. However, there isn't any matter concerning concrete recycling in the regulation. And these are my references. Thank you for listening. And the study was started within the scope of the course Green Urbanism in İTÜ, conducted by Professor Dr. Gülşen Aytaç. Special thanks to her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melis. A lot of data, very impressive. I was not aware that there is so much recycling being done in this context in Japan, for example. Yeah, we have a few minutes left for Q&A, so please raise your hands if you have any questions to Melis. Okay, maybe I take the opportunity, Melis. It sounds also convincing, and it's so important to think in this cycle of cradle to grave. Why isn't it done in other countries? I mean, you talk about regulations which can force it, but why isn't it done voluntarily?
Actually, in the presentation, I said like that it's not it shouldn't left to the initiatives companies, because they don't want to do at the first time, because it's about the economy, it's about the speed, because they want to demolish the buildings fast, and they want to create the new building fast and make more money in the short term. This selective demolition decreases the speed of the demolition, actually, because you have to work more on the individual materials, you have to selectively demolish. That's why they don't choose to do it. That's why I think that we need some regulations about that. Yeah, there are a lot of taxes in Japan, and I think in Turkey maybe someday because the regulation about the selective demolition and waste plan this year 2021, but it was talking about like 5-10 years already. They were talking about that, and after 10 years they created that regulation. Maybe firstly they need some time to make some arrangements and something like that. I don't know. I hope companies and the initiatives do something voluntarily, like you said, but I don't know. I don't think it will be the case.
We have to force them. Yeah, okay. Sounds like a promising approach. Definitely. Do you have any numbers for Germany? Just because I'm interested in that, and I have never.
No, not in Germany. Numbers. But I'm gonna look at it, because I'm curious about Germany too. Because Germany.
I'm not sure we are very good at that. So. Okay. All right. I don't see any raised hands, so. I hope everybody's looking forward to reading the papers, the full papers, which are in the book of proceedings then. Thank you very much to all the presenters for your, sharing your studies. And thank you everybody for participating, asking questions. Thank you very much for the interpreters. I know this is a very hard job and I'm always very much impressed about how it can work it all. Okay, so I hope you will continue to listen to the further presentations, and there is a small, well, let's say coffee break, even if it's a virtual one, now until the next session is starting. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.